Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly, I'll say not very much confidence, recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically hockey, more specifically in Canada. It's playoffs, baby. We made it.
Playoffs is right. Maybe I'll finish the intro. He's Mick. I'm
Matt. I just quit. Huh.
I was dangling. I was like, I think I pick up here. Anyways, he's Mick. You can find him on Twitter at Profit Mick. I'm Grant on Twitter machine at Fourth Line Sports. And you are right, Mick. We did make it. The playoffs are finally here. 82 games from October to April. Feels like a long time. But I promise you it's all worth it because the intensity always gets dialed up in the NHL postseason.
That's it. Me, I only get paid for 82 games a year, so I quit after the regular season. So off the clock as of last night. I no longer have to be a co-host. I'm just a guy with a pervy mustache on the internet. Baby.
Yeah, if you like the light side of Mick, you wait till you see him on the dark web, because I promise you there's levels you didn't know existed.
Oh yes. But yeah, like Grant alluded to, that's it. Regular season. We kind of did like a season-ish recap. So normally if you're joining us, we do kind of headlines. We'll run through all the Canadian teams. We talk a little gambling, a little fantasy, look at some boobs. Playoffs are different because it's kind of, I don't know. What do we do? There is no FanDuel. I checked that out last night. They don't have, they won't have anything probably till Monday. Maybe later Sunday for any of the series. If that's something you're inclined to do. Have fun. I don't have anything for that today, right? So I think we'll maybe pick and choose. I'm guessing next episode, in theory, we could do FanDuel lineups if that's something we care about. We have to take a break today. Gambling advice. There are some game lines. I guess in theory, if we wanted to look ahead toward like the games that are like the first, maybe even second matchups, we could sprinkle some money there. We could talk about some futures, who's going to win, series prices. I don't know. That's kind of I think that's maybe what you're getting today, if you stick with us.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a smattering. Maybe we'll debrief on a couple franchises that things just didn't go well towards the end of the season. We'll talk about playoff series. I don't know if we'll touch on everything. Obviously, Canadian series are our bread and butter, so we'll be focusing on that. But, I mean, there's not a whole bunch to talk about right now. You're right. We don't have anything to cross off the list in My Dirty Fantasy. I will, however, like to just dig my heels in Bettor Advice. I think I've got a good advantage over Mick, and I'm not the type of guy to sit back and just rest my laurels on my regular season crown. Like I'm gonna ride Mick like a toboggan down a sled. Like that analogy is going to stay throughout the playoffs. At least I hope it does. Had kind of a good regular season. We'll see if we carry that momentum into the postseason.
Yeah, very much so. So like Grant alluded to, we have a segment called Bettor Advice. We take 100 theoretical dollars every single week. We bet against... We have to spend it, and then we just kind of keep track of the results. Grant did very well for himself. Was like plus... Had like a... That would be 1,000... something percent profit, 100% profit. I don't know how you vary that. If you started with 100 and you got to 1,000, is that 1,000% profit?
No, because it was 1,000 each, or sorry, it was 100 each week. So what is that? Technically 2,000. It's probably like 50% profit. Okay. 50% return on investment, something like that.
Something like that. Good. Yeah, good year. For myself, I kind of struggled. I think I went 0-4 down the end. I tried to take some swings. Just a little too late, right? That's the nature of that game. So Grant is the champion. Do you have any, and maybe take a peek behind the curtains. We'll get to NHL playoff hockey for gambling advice first. Grant, do you have any, what went right? How are you successful gambling this year? What would you say is the things that you pointed at as your success points?
Oh, so this is tricky. I talk about this all the time. Hockey is probably the hardest sport to bet on because just by the nature of it is so chaotic. And I know, like, with basketball, with football, with baseball, and even with hockey to a certain extent, there's stops and starts. But with hockey, it's go, go, go. There's less structure. The puck's different. The movement's different. There's different, like, considerations as far as, like, game speed goes relative to other professional leagues. So it's tricky, and it's not always easy to do. And even if you have one method, as you've seen in years past, it doesn't always work. But as a general rule of thumb, I look for teams that perform within ranges. So that is teams, picture everything, it falls on a spectrum. Every team falls on the spectrum, efficiency, inefficiency, or deficiency. And teams that operate outside of their expected ranges, for better or worse, is where I kind of plot them on this progression-regression graph. And just measuring that against other teams kind of gives you a good idea of what to expect, or at least what you should take into account before a game. And then sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, especially with overtime bets. Like, those ones are probably the least reliable bets that you can, I shouldn't say least reliable, but you have to have your finger on the pulse just right to get those games right. And as you saw throughout this season, it doesn't always work. There's times when I went 0 for 3, 0 for 4, whatever, no overtime games hit. But identifying those, high return bets is really the difference between getting along and making money. So like sometimes you can get along and just like scratch and claw and make money, but when you identify those high value spots, that's really the difference between being a good gambler and a long-term profitable gambler.
There you go. Yeah, and for myself, I didn't have as much success this year as I have in the last couple of years. I definitely picked up my game a little bit. And myself was, I lost my edge. I lost my nerve. I started, and for some reason I was more result focused than, say, gambling focused, right? Like I found that in the Super Bowl. I think I put all my money on Philly winning. Some type of Philadelphia situation. I kind of laid up all my bets and leaned hard because I didn't want, I was like afraid of that result for some reason because I cared about someone's opinion potentially, and it just bit me in the ass. And my timing was just piss poor, absolutely piss poor. I was all over the overs, all over the board, and then I settled into this comfortable under. I was like, unders can't happen, right? Especially, I think it was last week. They had the day off for Good Friday onto the Saturday. There was like 2 unders on the board. Everything went over. Rest equals offense. I knew that. I had that down packed. And then for some reason, I just wimped out at the end there, right? So I think that was more, I was taking too many safe bets, and I couldn't get out of my own head with some of these things, right? So just taking that, I don't know. A little more confidence, I think, in my picks. That's my key going forward. Is I need to stop, I don't know, kind of get out of my own way.
That's fair. I know exactly what you're talking about because when I was I haven't always been into NFL betting. I would say it's probably an advent for me over the last, I don't know, we used to do it for fun every once in a while. But the last 10 years or so is when I really started getting into it. And there's a feeling out stage. You think you got a grasp on things. And then 5-6 years into it, it was I thought I had a good grasp on things. And then I'd go on the Twitter on Sunday mornings and people I respect had different opinions than me. And it just threw everything into
and you flip and you flop and that's it. Yeah, it's...
But, and I will say this, there was an important lesson from that because, one, you have to learn to trust your instincts. But two, I would say this was the harder lesson to learn because it still bothers me, or it's still not something that I mastered. When you flip and you flop, that's an indicator. Just don't pick that game. Just fucking move on from that one. But sometimes you just can't help yourself, whether it's an appealing odds or, you read something that just sets you over the edge. But the cue for me when I'm this, but then I flop, I'm no, I shouldn't bet on this game because for one reason or another, I'm going to find something that just pushes me in the wrong direction. It just doesn't work. So,
well, yeah, and it's it just, I don't know. It's hard to have discipline, right? Gambling is a discipline, right? Don't chase. You lost $20 today. That's fine. You can live. Can you how much would you have to recoup that? And you make these stupid bets. I had one the other day. Oh, I took a bunch of favorites. It was a lot of favorites on a ticket, and it wasn't a lot of I wasn't getting a big return. And then a comeback happened. Comeback happened in sports, and then I lost. And now I'm down, instead of 20, I'm down 40, and now I'm sitting there and I'm like, God, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life right now? And you end up in one of the spirals. Discipline, and that's what we're doing today. We're talking about Stanley Cup playoffs, and now look, we're disciplined, so we can kind of go forward.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna get reckless. Actually, I'm gonna.
Yeah. Oh yeah, myself.
Just to just for the sake of juxtaposition, we talk about how good we did because we were disciplined. We preach this. I'm gonna get reckless. I already know it. I'm a little hungover. And that's when I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just guns ablazing. Let's do what we're gonna do.
Yeah, have some fun. Have some fun. Starting Monday, so nothing this weekend. Kind of lame. Like there's really nothing. Oh, I guess basketball starts. So like if you like NBA, there's some baseball, right? So and the play-in games that they've had the last couple of days, they provided some entertainment, right? Like if you like some close down to the wire basketball, those 5-6 games that you got there. Outside, I think there was a blowout last night. It was good. It's a good idea that they've implemented. I think it adds extra, a little some meat on the bone, something to chase, and you watch some bum teams. You get to watch Kyle Lowry have a sore hamstring on the sidelines. It's great.
So I have as far as professional sports goes, I have a passive interest in basketball. I don't actively follow it like basically virtually every other sport. But intriguing storylines, like passive, like high viewing basketball opinion here. LeBron James needing overtime to win the playoff game against the Timberwolves. I was like, and they were down. Like they were down early and they made the comeback. I was like, this is good. This is good for the game. This gets people invested. Mm-hmm. And I would say even more so with the Toronto Raptors. Granted, they don't have the star power that James brings, but when you have this like little 9-year-old girl who's standing in or sitting on the baseline screaming at Raptors fans, like, and there's nothing to say, like, it wasn't like she wasn't out of pocket doing this. Like, this is part of the game. This is what you do. You're a professional, make free throws, and they didn't, and it cost them. And I'm like, and I guess the sprinkles on top, it was one of your former superstars' daughters that was doing this. It's like, man, this is intriguing. Like, this is a good storyline for a postseason game.
Great, and that's the thing. Like, you could have just ended your season ninth place, you missed postseason, walk away. You get kind of shown up. You're not clutch down the stretch, and basically a little girl beat you up. That's fun. That adds an extra layer of intrigue, and then you're not just disappointed. You put some salt in that wound. It's good. It's good stuff they're doing there. So with the regular season or the regular NBA playoffs kicking off tonight or kicking off today, maybe it's a tip-off. I don't think they kick off there. You know what I was alluding to, right? So it's a quiet weekend, kind of relax, recover. But you get to think about hockey. You might even throw in like a copy of like an old hockey game, set up a little bracket, play it out. That's maybe what I'm doing today. That actually sounds like a lot of fun. So
that does sound like a lot of fun.
I had it randomly on a shelf. I think I must have bought the new like NHL game, and I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely going to the PlayStation. I'm simming some playoffs today, seeing what happened. Maybe watch some hockey, have like a drink. So that should be fun. But I think do we just need to settle in? Look at all these playoff series that are going to be. This should be more of a playoff preview. We'll talk about. We have lots of time coming up, right? Like as the teams whittle down and we have less games and the storylines kind of starts. They stop branching. They start kind of pointing in their same direction. I think we'll have time to go back and look at the Montreals and talk about like the Vancouver's situations. Like if any of those things pop up, right? But maybe today just focus on playoff series.
Before we dive right into playoffs, the one thing that I wanted to get off my chest for this year was the Calgary Flames and their decision making.
Okay.
Did you watch the game versus Nashville with everything on the line and you need the overtime win to keep your hopes alive? Okay.
Wasn't it a shootout?
It did get to a shootout.
That Nick Ritchie, the little Butterfingers himself, was sent on the ice.
Your season is on the line. You turn to a guy that you acquired at the trade deadline for peanuts. Like, it just made no sense to me.
Yeah.
But it was the poetic justice the Flames deserved for their end of the season. Because what a lackluster effort from start to finish, where it was just like every step of the way they kept shooting themselves in the foot, and it was god awful. It was fucking painful to watch. It was like car crash. Don't look, but you have to look worthy. Like, it was. I can't I don't know if Daryl Sutter's going to have a job after this year. And I kind of like the guy grew on me. I kind of like his brand of hockey. Mm-hmm. I like his post game pressers. I think he's a super sharp hockey guy. But seeing how this season went, I don't know how they can look Daryl Sutter in the face and say, "I'm glad you sent Nick Ritchie out with the season on the line. Those are the types of hockey decisions we need you to keep making."
So I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking maybe we should have done like a fun segment off the top rather than giving our like why gambling advice opinions. But I was thinking like we almost could do a quick season recap, right? We didn't officially have the end of the season last week. It did stretch till yesterday, right? So we could have talked about that. But just like what was your boneheaded play of the year, right? So like what decision in season do you think was the worst decision, right? So a couple contenders for myself just off the top of my head. The Tampa Bay Lightning moving 5 picks, including a first round pick for Tanner Jeannot. What the fuck's that? From Nashville. I don't know who that is. It's this big guy that apparently has like soft hands and has like a scoring touch. Five future picks. Like their cupboard isn't like rich. Like they've been paying assets out the wazoo for this current run. And then when you probably aren't winning the cup this year, right, based on how the team's playing and how things are going, why would you go all in on a guy that is nothing? Like what is his like high level? Like maybe a bit more physical of a Zach Hyman? Is Zach Hyman worth 5 picks? I don't know. Right? You know what I mean? Like the best iteration, like Zach Hyman right now is the best iteration of maybe what Jeannot could become, right? What are you doing? So that's pretty fucking dumb. The Calgary situation, I would probably put up there, and then Columbus beating Pittsburgh in a shootout or overtime, whatever it was, the other night, to drop from dead last to like 29th and losing out on a guaranteed top 3 pick in the draft this year. That one seems pretty dumb too. So Grant, do you have any bonehead plays of the year or like moves or in-season decisions?
So with absolutely zero foresight, like Nick Ritchie would have been one that comes to mind off the top. I do like where I don't even think Tanner Jeannot is a Zach Hyman caliber player. He kind of reminds me more of like a more skilled Zach Kassian. Like he is not a skill player at all.
That's the name that I got to first, but I was like, no, I have to do better. Like I have to like justify that move. Because you're right. He reminds me a lot of Zach Kassian, of what I've seen. Zach Kassian maybe with a bit more of a scoring touch. Yeah. 5 picks?
Yeah. So, and when you were talking about Columbus, something else came to mind for me, and that was, and maybe this doesn't count because it's not technically in-season bonehead, but what was Johnny Gaudreau thinking going to Columbus? He had offers from like virtually every other market. Why would you choose to play in Columbus?
I don't understand. I don't get it. You know, now this season they win the draft lottery, which is still could happen, right? Like we're not saying that, but you have a really good chance at a top 3 pick. You bring in a young kid in, you've got Gaudreau as kind of the mentor, and you say we're going to build around these 2 guys as kind of our cornerstones. I could buy that. Bedard, Gaudreau, cool. I get it. It doesn't look that bad in hindsight. Now what are you doing? You're getting the 5th overall pick? Look at me, the next Jesse Bujarvi? What the fuck are you doing, Gaudreau?
And another thing...
Not only that, but you wrecked the Columbus Blue Jackets, and you wrecked the Calgary Flames. What the hell?
Yeah, way to take down 2 franchises. I didn't even think of that. That's a good point. But, again, not something... I don't think that this scratches... I don't think that this technically meets your criteria as outlined. But let's go back last year, 2 years ago rather. Ron Hextall protected Jeff Carter over Jared McCann. Jared McCann is a 40-goal scorer now. Jeff Carter is well past his prime. And now, I'm not going to say that was like the move. Like that wasn't what sunk him. There was a whole bunch of other stuff going on with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But for the first time since Sidney Crosby's rookie season, the Pittsburgh Penguins are not in the postseason. Obviously, it cost Ron Hextall and Brian Burke their jobs, but it feels like there wasn't one specific move. If there was one specific move, it's the McCann, not protecting McCann years ago. But I would say it's an accumulation of just like constant tinkering that just didn't pan out. So I might come up with something a little bit more thoughtful if I had some time to think about it. But right off the cuff, those are the things that stand out for me.
Okay, cool. So then I was thinking, what are kind of fun categories? You want to do that? So like your MVP, McDavid. I don't know. I'm going to disagree. No, okay. Like Norris Trophy winner of the year, goalie like Vezina. If you were just to give a Vezina right now, I'm probably going Hellebuck. Right, I think most important goalie to a team, Hellebuck more than Linus Ullmark. Because who?
Yeah, I don't think Connor Hellebuck gets the respect that he deserves. And I said this earlier in the year, like the Vezina Trophy is not about the best goalie. The Vezina Trophy is about who caught lightning in the bottle that year. And to me, it is Linus Ullmark. But one of these years, like we saw with Carey Price back in 2015, I honestly think there will be a point when Connor Hellebuck, if he's got like one more stellar season in him, it's going to put him into the Hart conversation. I don't know if he does. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen like next year, at most the year after that, because like we're getting into his 30s already. Like, I'm not saying he's past his prime, but he's definitely in the autumn years of his most productive hockey years. Connor Hellebuck is a guy who deserves recognition in the Hart category. It's not coming this year, not with the amount of skilled players that did what they did, McDavid chief among them. And I don't even know if Draisaitl, who was the second highest scoring player, is going to be in the Hart Trophy conversation. When you have guys like Pasta hit 60 goals, when you have Mikko Rantanen hit 55 goals, when you have Erik Karlsson at over 100 points, it kind of dwarfs Draisaitl's accomplishment. So if I had McDavid without a question, I would say yes. Pasta, I think, is going to be a finalist, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was Rantanen over Draisaitl in the final three.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you're picking just kind of like who the nominees or whatever, I think you're right in the pulse there. And for defensemen, I always think that defensemen should stop pucks from going in nets, not put pucks in nets, right? So I hate the Karlsson comparison. That team was dog shit. They were in the bottom of the standings. Yeah, great. He scored 100 points. You know what? Guys score a lot on bad teams, right? That is a function of hockey. Yeah, somebody out there, Lawson Krause or something like that, didn't he have like 70 points this season for Arizona? And everyone's like, oh, he's really good. I'm like, I don't know how, if he's a 70-point player on a different franchise, right? Like, he probably doesn't have the primary scorer role, doesn't get the same ice time. You're going to see reverses in the metrics. Like, don't buy into him as a constant 70-point guy, right? I don't know if he has that kind of level to him. And I don't know. So, like, defensively, I'd probably be like more of a homer pick, to be perfectly honest with you. Guys that changed systems, I would look at. Now I realize this sounds very, very nepotistic, what I'm about to say, but like Giordano or like a Matthias Ekholm, I would put them in the conversation for Norris, just for what those two guys brought to the defensive systems for two of the best teams in the league, right? If we're talking about best defensemen out there, guys that changed how teams play defense, look at Giordano, look at Ekholm, and I think you could have an argument. They don't have the stats to prove it, right? You can't be a stats guy and say, well, look, I'm on the points page. They're not up there in the top. But if you watch, if that gut feeling, the eye test, those other metrics that aren't just on a spreadsheet, guys like that, I think, could be in the conversation, right? I don't think they will be. I don't think anyone else is having those conversations. But just like off the cuff, who are guys that I've seen make an impact throughout the season? It'd be players like that, right? So
I'm glad you brought up Ekholm, and I was definitely going to frame it as a homer pick, just like you did. Ekholm, what he accomplished with the Oilers, and I thought about bringing this up when you're talking about bonehead moves. Like, bonehead moves, one thing. But what were the exceptional moves? It's like, man, the Oilers obtaining Matthias Ekholm was an exceptional move, kind of the opposite of the spectrum. But what I will say about Ekholm is that I don't think he had enough runway in Edmonton to highlight his abilities. But, even if he had half a season and he maintained his form, I would say, yes, 100% he's in the Norris Trophy conversation. But trade deadline acquisition, you got 20 games under your belt with the Oilers. You do exceptional things throughout those 20 games. I don't know if it's enough to elevate him into the conversation. And likewise with Giordano, I agree. He has a defensive component to his game that makes him invaluable to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It just feels like the NHL Writers Association, whoever votes on this shit, they've gotten away from defending defensemen. Like, they want They want the trendy picks. They want the Carlsons with the 100-point seasons. They want the Cale Makars with the 100-point season. And not to take anything away from their defending abilities, but they're not like the prototypical defensive mold that I think gets overlooked in this category.
Yeah, no, I think we're kind of on the same page with that one. And be a homer. At this point, I think I'm just going to lean into it. I'm a homer now. Ekholm's great. Leafs are great. Go Canada. None of this objectiveness. It's just, that's it. Just going off the cuff. What was the other category I was thinking of that I thought would be fun? Do you have like a favorite game, a series of games, a moment in a game? Like, what was your best game of the year? If you off the top of your head, could you give point a finger and say that is the best moment? For myself, I'm going to take a series of games. I'm guessing I didn't look at the dates. I'm thinking late January, maybe February. There was maybe a 2-week stretch where we had 2 Boston Leafs games, and then we had Boston Edmonton, and maybe actually Toronto Edmonton, and it seemed like there was a series where those teams kind of collided there for a little bit. We saw Boston beat up on Boston beat up on Edmonton at home. The Edmonton embarrassed the Leafs a couple nights later, and then when they came back out, they got the best of the Bruins at home, and then the Leafs put on an outstanding offensive performance and just outshot the Oilers, right? And I'm thinking that kind of stretch of games in my mind was almost like the pinnacle of the season, right? Some of the best hockey you were seeing the dichotomy of these very, very dynamic teams, some of the best teams in the league, kind of the clash of titans, as it were, going up against each other, and it was just a great display, right? I would love to see 2 of those teams maybe be in the Stanley Cup Finals this year. I think that would make for some fucking great hockey. We're seeing some incredible players, and with the Crosby missing the playoffs, with Ovechkin kind of looking like he's in goal chase mode, not doing a heck of a lot else, right? We're seeing the injuries in the Tampa Bays. We're kind of without superstars, right? We're kind of without the mega stars right now that have those defining moments. The Jonathan Taves, they've kind of, that time has come and passed, right? Patrick Kane isn't there anymore. I think we need the next batch, that next generation, someone else to step up. We need some superstar defining moments, and I think this is the year that happens, right? So that's when we're going to be looking at the future guys, right? Is it the Pasternak? Is Pasternak getting 50 goals this postseason? Maybe, right? And he's gonna make his name known. Are we gonna see McDavid go supernova? Are we gonna see Matthews, Marner put their name on something, right? So I think that's kind of what those series of games. I kind of stole a lot of wind in the room. Do you have a game that stands out in your mind as kind of like that was awesome?
In the spirit of homerism and recency bias, it was definitely the end of the season the Oilers put together. What was it, 11-0-1 over their last 12 games or something silly like that? It was a hell of a streak.
They didn't lose. It was like they won 16, or they had 16 games without a loss or something end of season. Wasn't that the stat? Like they were like losing, but they would be in overtime.
Yeah, it's been a while since their last regulation loss. Mm-hmm. I don't know off the top of my head. I know it's in double digits, though. That is a level of hockey that you kind of aspire for. Mm-hmm. And this is the hat that every sports fan wears. You're just waiting for the impending doom. Like you can't. I'm a Rays fan, very passionate about Rays and Oilers. The Rays, as they were going further and further and further they started the season 13-0. I was like, I know that it's going to implode. Mm-hmm. And like that, I know that the Oilers streak is going to implode, and it's concerning that the implosion could potentially happen at the outset of the playoffs and to put them right behind the 8 ball, and who knows if they can recover type thing. But in the spirit of rah, 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 homerism, what they've done to end the season is just exceptional. Best string of games I in any memory as an Oilers fan I can remember seeing. They just dominated from start to finish, basically over the last month and a half of the season. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think we discredit ourselves for not being more homers. We are seeing 2 of the best Canadian teams I can ever recall, right? I'm thinking back just like recent memory. Vancouver with the Scenes, that was a decent squad, right? The Senators, when they had like the Heat, Spezza, Alfredson, Heatley, that team was on fire, right? They started the season, in my mind, there was once where like they went like 16-0 to start the season. Incredible offense. And then from then, we haven't really seen any, unless something like is missing. We've seen little glips, teams kind of go off there, but like we're witnessing right now with the Oilers and the Leafs, two of the best teams that have ever been constructed, that have ever competed in the league coming out of Canada into the playoffs this year. And I think we just shouldn't take it for granted, right? Like live in this moment. They're not that far removed, Edmonton and Toronto, from being the Buffalo Sabres, right? It was right around the time, 2016, right? There's the summer, there's the McDavid Eichel draft. Oh, Eichel, is he going to be better than McDavid? Matthews comes up the next year. I think Buffalo was in the draft lottery too, right? There was a chance they could have had both Matthews and Eichel had the balls went the right way. And now look at the Sabres. They haven't made the postseason for like 11 years or something. Just giant streak where they're just incompetent, right? And like it's a fine line between the Oilers and the Sabres if you look back in the last 7 years. So the fact that we're seeing this incredible excellence from these one franchises and mediocrity from the other one, it's a very, very fine line that we're walking, and I think we should embrace it more.
So the Buffalo Sabres are in the position that the Oilers were in the early 10s, like late aughts, early 10s, and they weren't performing. Mm-hmm. And I agree. And I think that the difference now is the superstar power. You have the Matthews, the Marners, the McDavid, the Dreisaitl's, the Rileys, like the Ekholms. Like, this isn't usual. This isn't the norm for Canadian franchises.
No.
And you're right. Maybe I shouldn't keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe it's time to just embrace this and say, let's see how good this gets.
There you go. Cool. So with that, I have no idea what we're doing today.
Well, that was a good season recap. I don't think we went over.
Okay. We're doing
no reason to belabor any other points. We could dive right into the postseason.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say any other points you want to bring up? No, you're good. I'm good.
End of the season was exciting. Cool. I enjoyed all the races, but that's it. Playoff time. Here we go.
That's it. Yeah, I wish it was a little bit closer. And I would like to, again, if we pull up the standings here, my fun game of the Boston Bruins were so much better than the Carolina Hurricanes. How much better than, you ask? What is that? That is 22 points. They were 11 games better than the second placed Carolina Hurricanes. What is the difference between 22, 71? So this difference between 1 and 2 in the league is greater than the difference between the Islanders, or so let's call it the Florida Panthers. So they got into the postseason, 92 points. So 22 points would bring you to the Arizona Coyotes. So the Arizona Coyotes are the same distance away from making the postseason as 1 and 2 is. And you're like, that's pretty ridiculous. What about Anaheim? What's 22 points different? You'd be looking at the Detroit Red Wings. Okay, that was less exciting.
But your point's not lost. Like, even if we go from Carolina, so first to second is 22. Mm-hmm. What does that get you down to? 91? 91. That's basically the difference between second place and the last place
in the postseason. Between 1 and 2? That's absolutely ridiculous. So we did see some incredible standings. Now, a President's Trophy is not the greatest trophy to win in hockey for various reasons. Will there be a President's Trophy curse this year? Maybe.
I think that. Do you have the stat off the top of your head? The last team to win President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup?
I don't. No. Let's see. Last team to.
Was it like Detroit back in 2008?
And the Stanley Cup. The 13 Blackhawks. So 10.
That makes more sense.
It's been a decade, yeah.
Do you think can the Bruins shake the curse this year? What do you think?
We'll get in. Do you want to just dive right into these series then? Is that where we're headed?
Do you want to just let's run through every non-Canadian one quickly if you want to. If there's something to say, let's say it. If not, and then we'll dig into the Canadian ones.
Cool. Yeah, so if we start with Boston, Florida, which I believe was finalized, I do believe the Bruins probably beat the Florida Panthers, but I would take Boston in 5, Boston maybe in 6. If I was a gambling man, that's what I'd be looking at. But I don't know if we see a long run from the Boston Bruins. I think there is probably some chinks in that armor, and I wouldn't be surprised if that pops up, maybe even the second round. I can't see them coming out, honestly, of the East.
This team's better than every other team. The only, and especially the difference in net in the opening round for me, I want to say Bruins in 4. You're either getting Sergei Bobrovsky or you're getting
Spencer Knight.
I think he's in, like, isn't he in detox? I think player assistance program. Did he come back from that? I think it was Alex Lyon.
Oh, it is Alex Lyon. Yeah, okay.
So, like, I don't know, man. This feels like it's just going to be a shooting gallery. Bruins in 4.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, we've also seen that before. It just takes one fucking dickhead, one bad play, one cheap shot on the ice, and that can change a series, guys. If you look back, think of, like, Montreal, Toronto from a couple years ago, right? So, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk is a real piece of shit. Just saying.
Big piece of shit.
Big piece of shit. Let's see. So what else is going on here? We've got... let's look at the Metro. So, 2-3 matchup. Bruins. I got Bruins on the brain. Devils, Rangers. I kind of like... I just appreciate the way that the Rangers are built. I like these teams. Right now, the Oilers, the Leafs, the Rangers, they all kind of have similar DNA, right? They have the high-end talent. You paid for the elite premium guys. You fill in the rest, right? I look at the Rangers. That's like how they're constructed. I think New Jersey is very inflated from their 18-game win streak this season, right? Like, that is there's some error in kind of their season, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the big guns step up for the Rangers and take that one. So I like the Rangers. Could be close. 6. Rangers 6.
So I think this one's going the full 7, and
I almost said 7.
I think whoever wins this series is going to leave themselves out of gas for the next round. I think that this is going to be a bloodbath. Mm-hmm. New Jersey was one of the best teams to end the regular season, likewise with the Rangers, but the Devils their Devils' success is substantiated with solid underlying metrics. The Rangers, they rely so much on their skill players, and that's not to say that they can't or they won't make a run, but it's this paper house they're living in where if they run cold or if they run into a hot goaltender, they don't have the defensive structure to limit other teams. Mm-hmm. And they're relying so much on scoring that, and then maybe I'm going to eat this before the end of the postseason because they do have Shesterkin. Anyways, I don't believe the Rangers can make back-to-back conference finals. But I also don't think that the Devils have enough experience. Like, it feels like they're this young version. They're in the young, like, the dawn of their dynasty or glory years. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be an experience for them, but I think Rangers prevail in 7.
Yeah, if we had to pick heroes, like the guy who kind of wins the series for you, I kind of feel like we're more likely looking at a Chris Kreider, a Zuccarello, hearing those names, a Panarin, than we are to the Jack Hughes or the Timo Myers, right? So I agree. I think it's just not the experience. Hell of a season from the Rangers, or the Devils, but I just don't know if they're there. I also don't know if the Rangers would get past the winner of the next series in the Metro, so just sticking there. Carolina taking on the wild card Islanders, it's a story. It's there. Carolina, I don't know. I think they're a good club. They've been a good club since the offset. They were my pick for the Stanley Cup at the start of the year. Has that changed? I am not that doubtful. I think they beat the Islanders 5 games.
That's fair. I would say Canes in 5 is probably. Canes in 5, maybe 6.
Yeah,
they're just better. They're better in every component of the game than virtually every other team. Like, they can. I think that they are probably one of the few teams that can hang with the Bruins. They have a good offense. They've got play with so much structure defensively. They have pedigree. They've been on deep playoff runs. Rod Brindamore knows what it takes. Mm-hmm. I like to validate your pick from the outset of the season. The Canes are good, and I don't think that the Islanders will get in the way.
Well, you were on them too. I feel like episode 1, or if you went back and listened, we were doing our picks. You'd be like, oh yeah, we like the Canes and somebody, right? So I mean, the fact that they're there, and again, they're second, third, right? They're a good squad, guys. Do not sleep on the Carolina Hurricanes and what Brindamore is doing there. So yeah, we kind of have similar opinions there. Leafs, let's finish up the East. Leafs, Lightning. Love to see it.
Until the end of time. These teams are tidally locked. Like, it's just, for better or worse, the Leafs will always have to get past the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is this the year? Do they exercise the demons?
Leafs win in 5.
Damn.
They're going 1-1 at home. They're sweeping in Tampa. They're coming home, winning Game 5. Game over. Second round. Let's go.
So, I respect the hell out of your confidence on this one. I am also thinking the Leafs prevail. I don't know if it's going to be 5. I was thinking maybe 6. What you don't want is you don't want a Game 7.
I can't handle a Game 6 and 7 at this point in my life. So it has to be 5.
But and this is where, like, if it goes Game 7, you almost feel like the Leafs are going to spend it. They're going to be in their own heads. Like, it's not going to end well.
Just trade Matthews this offseason. Just get over it. Like, we're rebuilding. We're done. Fuck it.
The advantage that I think that they have over the Leafs is that, well, I think it's not just an advantage. They are much better constructed than the Tampa Bay Lightning are this season, and they're getting so much more out of the roster than the Bolts are. Analytically, I think they set up exceptionally well against the Lightning. But my concern, as I've talked about nearly every episode this season, will goaltending be enough? I'm just struggling. I was like, I keep going over the same barrier time and time again. I was like, they are so much better than the Lightning, but what if any one of their goalies poops themselves? Like, do you automatically go into panic mode? If somebody shits themselves in Game 1, do you go back to them in Game 2? Like, can they get out of their own way, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and actually win a playoff series?
I do think the benefits to doing the... And I mean, that's just how the Leafs are constructed, right? And we see that with other teams too. Like, we'll talk about that, how they just, some teams don't spend money on goaltending. You kind of get what you get. Do they have the leadership to overcome this? They should. These guys have been there before. They've seen the embarrassment. Can they help one of these young guys kind of get out of their heads? I think so, right? Whether it's Wall, whether it's Samsonov, whether it's Murray for some reason showing up. I think they'll be okay, and I just don't know if Tampa has the guns right now to compete with this Maple Leaf team. They're hurt. They're kind of on the other side. They're backpedaling. John Cooper's had some talks. Like, he sat some of the big guys for whole periods this year to prove points. That doesn't sound like it's a super cohesive group right now. Now, they do have the experience. They do have the maturity. They're not going to get in their head, so you have to beat them straight up. They're not going to beat themselves, right? So,
fair. Yeah, I don't want to say this is it for this iteration of the Maple Leafs.
No. You get next season. Like, that's the thing. This is not the end of the road. You get next year, no ifs, ands, or buts, and it could basically be the same core. So, as long as you're not embarrassed, like, there's really not there. I don't know. There's no bad press. Maybe getting swept at this point. Just don't get swept. You'll be fine.
I said this last year. I'm going to say it every year until it fucking happens. If the Leafs don't make it out of the first round, it's got to, it has to cost Kyle Dubas' job this time. Like, if you continue to not
at this
prioritize goaltending.
Yeah, but at this point, you can't do more. This is on players. This is on coaches, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's who's on the ice. Dubas can just sit and watch, right? So, and you can't tell me he hasn't done an incredible job with this team.
But he has. And so, but their Achilles heel is always goaltending. And for the love of God, I hope they prove me wrong. I really do. Yeah. Because nothing would make me happier than a Maple Leafs versus Oilers Stanley Cup final. And that's coming from a very sincere place. I would love to see that.
Today, you can spell redemption by going through Tampa, going through Boston, going through Carolina to get to the Stanley Cup finals. How is that not a storybook ending? You want to do 25 years of the last 25 years of the Leafs undo the history, rip off the Band-Aid. There's your demons right in the row. You can get them all with one shot.
And see, that's the storybook ending they deserve. And I hope you're right. And it's just this fucking creeping doubt that it sinks in every postseason. And I think it's more of a learned behavior than an actual this is what I'm actually feeling at this point, because I do trust the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
But what if we can't? What if Ilya Samsonov isn't the guy? What if they turn to Joseph Wall too early? Like, what if they force Matt Murray back to try and salvage it at the end, and then he shits himself? Like, these are just like, I don't know, man. I don't know how you deal with being a Leafs fan and just trusting that the goaltending will be there. But I hope, for your sake, it is there this
I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's not like Jack Campbell was like oohing confidence last year when I was looking at him, right? Like, Jack Campbell was just the smiling version of what the Leafs currently have, right? Like, it's not like they like took a step back in that. They're just like, we just have a guy that you could be like mean. You can hate Matt Murray. You can't hate Soup. He's too friendly. He's too nice. He's too pretty, right? Like, so they got rid of like that aspect of it, and it just is what it is. Like, and we could go through some of these other teams, but you're telling me that you think the Devils have a better situation in that? The Vegas has a better situation in that, right? Like, we're trusting 55-year-old Fleury to take the Wild far, right? Like, Ottinger, remember that one time he stopped 70 shots against the Flames? Remember that? It's like, where are these? There are no goalies. That's just the league now, Grant. There are no goalies. So you make do. Linus Ullmark is like one going away. Who is the Boston Bruins? Like, that is the bastion of hope. That is the bastion of like, this is the elite goalie right now is Linus Ullmark. Get the fuck out of here with your goalies. It doesn't matter anymore. It's all just random. They know that. Why spend money on a goalie? So
yeah, all right. Well, I guess the longer the Leafs go, honestly, if the Leafs make it out of the first round, I don't think Dubas has to worry about anything. But if they lose convincingly in the first round because of goaltending, I don't think Kyle Dubas has a job.
Oh, and like I said, if you get swept, bad things are happening in Toronto. Win a series, all the pressure goes away. No one can point and say, I've been out of the first round. Then it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it changes the whole narrative, the negativity around this team. People have to pick a new tone, and people are going to run out of things to say eventually, right? Winning cures a lot. So, all right. Pretty much chalk in the East. Let's see if maybe some more exciting things happen in the West. We'll start with the defending Stanley Cup champions. You know what? People were worried all season. These guys aren't in the postseason. They're bottom 10 team. What's going on? Colorado kicks ass right to number 1. They play the Kraken. Does Seattle stand a chance?
I do. I think that this is a bad matchup for the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah. Landeskog isn't there. Seattle, they're not the best team, but you know what? They've got four lines that can roll. They've got a goalie that plays pretty convincing hockey. They like offense. Choo-choo, let's go.
And the narrative isn't lost on me, and I don't know who will be starting for the Kraken because it feels kind of... Actually, let's take a quick look here. But it was more of a 1A, 1B situation, but how satisfying would it be for... Is it Grubauer?
Yeah.
How satisfying would it be for Grubauer to step up and just fucking knock off his old team?
There are some stories there, for sure. And like we said, like the Kraken, they're not a one-stop wonder, right? Like, it's not like you shut down a line. They've got, like, a lot of guys that can play offense, right? They're pointing in the right direction. What a great story for that city, right? You're an expansion team. You kind of have a rocky start, not the fastest start compared to Vegas, right? You're always going to be comparing Seattle and Vegas. This is their moment, right? Win a playoff series here against the defending champions.
This kind of reminds me of Columbus versus Tampa a few years ago. What was that, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Where Columbus came out of nowhere and just swept, or maybe it was 5 games.
No, it was a sweep. They were up 3-1 after one period, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning never had another lead in that series. Epic collapse from a President's Trophy winner, you say?
I think that it's not gonna be. Colorado isn't the team they were last year. They used a run towards the end of the season, needing all of their 82 games to move into the first, and this isn't to diminish their accomplishments, but it is to show maybe more to illustrate the parity of the Western Conference. And there's not a big gap between the top team in the West and the bottom wildcard team.
No, not at all.
Or sorry, they finished second. Vegas ended up winning. So, anyways, the point is still valid. Like, this team, Seattle can compete. Depth scoring means so much in the playoffs, and that's the advantage, as you were mentioning. the Kraken can put any four of their lines out and score, whereas Colorado relies so much on their top. Even I don't even want to say top two lines anymore. Their top line to drive.
Well, Landeskog's hurt, right? And he was looking like he was one of their better players this season. Like he helped that team down the stretch immensely. So like that's a big loss. You still got the McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar. I don't know.
I think Seattle, and for them to win, I think they need to do it in 6. I don't think you want to go back to Colorado, back to Denver for Game 7. So I'm saying Kraken in 6.
Sea level versus Colorado altitude, it could play some fatigue, right? So I think these guys will be tested. I would probably lean Colorado, but it's close. Like it is a close series. But I'm a coward. So there we go. Speaking of another series that's gonna be close, Dallas, Minnesota. Hockey meccas right there.
So we say this joke comes up probably every year, but this one feels like it's going to be the low end. It's like first team to score 6 goals wins the series. It's not going to be Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm going all over the place here. Marc-Andre Fleury is one of the guys that I actually enjoy watching and I have a vested interest in. The guy's kind of been pooped on everywhere he goes, but nevertheless, he remains an above-average goaltender, which is kind of the unicorn in this year's NHL. We've seen him steal games towards the end of the season. Granted, they cooled off over the final week, 2 weeks, and dropped to third in the Central Division. But there was a point, not very days, if not weeks ago, where they were leading the Central Division. And it was thanks to play from Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't think that he's done. I think that he can steal another series. And Dallas, when their offense runs cold, I think Minnesota's got them beat. So...
Oh, I agree. I'm going to look at that and say, yeah, you've got your Jason Robertsons. And Jamie Benn looks like maybe he's not completely dead in the waters. Yeah, you got some offense. Cool. Yeah, you can stop a puck once in a while, Ottinger. But I agree. I look at nets and I say, I don't know, Fleury could steal a series. And I mean, we want to talk about best player on the ice. Kaprizov, he's right there. He's healthy. If he's back, if he's playing at 100%, I think Minnesota, hands down, can keep up with Dallas, play their brand of hockey, and probably win, right? I'm going to bet on the best player in that series and go with Kaprizov. Now, if he's hurt and limited and it doesn't look like himself, that's different. That's one of those things. It sucks, but I'm gonna take a chance on, I think, a very talented hockey player. And
yeah. You're right for doing it. I'm saying Wild in 7. And I think it's going to be one of those classic overtime games in Game 7, 2-1, and Fleury is, without question, the number 1 star. This is a 40-save performance in Game 7. Wild beat Dallas 2-1 in overtime. I'm calling it right now.
And like I alluded to earlier in the show, we need stars. Right now, I love hockey. I think about hockey all the time. There aren't stars. 10 years ago, there was this allure of these guys. Look at Jonathan Toews. Look at him. Watch him skate around. He's almost a magician on the ice. He gets to play with Patrick Kane. Oh my God, the things those guys do. And they had this allure, this star power. These guys we want to talk about. There's no one in hockey I want to talk about right now. I don't care about these guys off season. If I found out that Matt Dumba beat up some cab driver, I'd be like, who the fuck cares about Matt Dumba? Oh, loser.
That cabbie definitely had it coming.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that much.
Probably deserved it. Loser, right? We just don't have that star power. Those things. Kaprizov, here's your chance, buddy. Win a series. Become a star. Make something of yourself.
Yep.
All right. Let's go to. We'll end with Grant's favorite. We'll go Vegas with Laurent Brossoit in between the pipes, exuding confidence around the world. Oh, they've also got Jonathan Quick. Get out of here with your goalies. On the other side, we have the Winnipeg Jets and one of the best goalies in the world. So, Vegas, Winnipeg. Easy matchup for the Knights, right? They're going to the second round, no problem. Or are they?
So this is even more pronounced a nightmare matchup for the Vegas Golden Knights because line for line, the Jets can skate with the Knights. And I don't care if people come at me for that. I think that the depth that the Knights have is akin to the depth that the Jets have. But the biggest difference is between the pipes. And every year, a hot goalie takes a team further than they deserve to go. Connor Hellebuck, I believe that this is his time to shine, knocking off the first seed in the West. I'm not saying it's destined to happen, but I like what Winnipeg can bring, and I think that they can beat Vegas at their own game on the strength of Connor Hellebuyck's play.
I agree very completely. Like I'm looking at like Vegas is in the Pacific Division. They get to beat up on the bottom feeding teams. Like they get the Ducks several times a year. They get the Sharks several times a year, right? That's an advantage. That's the only reason that they have a little bit more points, I think, than the Jets this season. They're very comparable. I wouldn't put money that Jack Eichel is going to make something of himself, right? If anything, Jack Eichel is going to be just a wet fart somewhere on the ice, and we'll just forget about it and move on and hold our nose and have some Febreze in your pocket. It'll go away. So I like the Jets. That is definitely one of my upset picks as well. I was looking at series prices. They're only like plus 135. So even Vegas at this point doesn't take the Winnipeg Jets. That's going to be my blow-away pick. I was like, oh, they're going to be like 4-1 underdogs. This is going to be great. I'm going to put all my money and Bettor Advice on it. Plus 135. What is that? Come on. So I agree. I think we're probably going to see some Canadian teams in the second round, because when the Jets beat the Knights, they get to play the Edmonton Oilers, who are playing the Kings. And I can't see the Edmonton Oilers at this point losing to the LA Kings.
I talked about this, and I didn't mean put my foot in my mouth, because just minutes ago I was like, fine, I'm going to embrace it and run it hot. I just have the same feeling about the Oilers goaltending as I do the Leafs.
Oh, okay.
And it fucking pains me to say that, because Stuart Skinner, God bless his heart, he should be one of the Calder finalists for Rookie of the Year with what he's accomplished on the Oilers. But he's a rookie goaltender making his first postseason start against a surprisingly upstart Kings team. They can score. They can play defense. They've got the solid two-way play. They've got, we'll call it questionable scoring depth, but still scoring depth nonetheless. I don't know. And I know that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl could take over a series and win this. But when these teams met last year, it was Mike Smith was the difference. And that's not to diminish McDavid and Draisaitl's accomplishments, but when push came to shove, they needed a shutout from Mike Smith in Game 7 to win 2-0. And I can't even remember if one of those was an empty net or not. But to win 2-0 in Game 7, can Stuart Skinner match that? I don't know. Do they need him to? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But the Oilers need to be better than they showed last year in the first round.
Yeah, but like, I mean, again, at the same time, you're looking across the net and you're seeing Elvis Merzel-Lincoln looking at you, and you're like, I don't know. I maybe feel a little bit better about myself.
This guy, we're playing a guy named fucking Elvis over here.
It actually, and like in all serious, it might be Korpisalo. I knew that there was two bum goalies that the Blue Jackets had, and I think the Kings got one of them. So it might be Korpisalo, it might be Elvis. In my mind, they're the same guy. I don't care.
Yeah, they are the exact same goalie. Just
so when you're watching on whatever Monday night and you see Korpisalo in there, you're like, where the hell's Merzel-Lincoln? They're the same person in my mind.
Phoenix Copley, I think, is the other guy.
Okay.
I don't even know who the Kings are going to start. Like you were mentioning, there's not an abundance of talented goaltenders.
Yeah, like when you say like you're like, oh, I'm scared about their net. I'm like looking across the rink and I'm like gonna give you Jimmy Butler face, almost like. Okay.
Give me the Daria DeRozan treatment. Just start screaming. Greg, you're wrong. Yeah. You're wrong. Oh, but I don't. Yeah, and maybe this is like I said. You know what? Fuck it. The Oilers are the better team. They are the superior team. They beat the Kings twice down the stretch during their hot streak. I hope that I don't regret it. I think the Oilers can beat the Kings in round 1.
I agree, and I believe that sets up a playoff matchup between the Jets and the Oilers. And maybe last year, I'll be honest with you, I wanted the Battle of Alberta. I wanted these hot cities. I worked in downtown Calgary last year during a couple Flames games. There was a lot of Oilers jerseys populating. There was not a strong indicator that this was a head-to-head, die-hard matchup. Like tons of McDavid jerseys. I don't know if the Flames fan base is what they need, but you know what you won't see a lot in Winnipeg? A single stinking McDavid jersey, because this could be the prairie fire that we wanted, the battle, something, this rivalry that gets ignited. We're talking, the Jets don't really have a rival. Maybe it's Edmonton Oilers. Maybe we see something special in the second round, right? Something that like we think about, we talk about into the next season, right? Like, oh man, Winnipeg's in Edmonton in January. Don't miss it.
And this would guarantee another Canadian team making to the conference finals, which I think, for our viewers' sake, I hope happens, because who wouldn't want a few extra weeks of making ground on the mic? But I do think it elevates the game across the country, because as the teams whittle down, we do start to root for whichever Canadian team is left standing, just in the hopes that the Stanley Cup eventually comes back north of the border. You know what's fucky? 30th anniversary. The last time Canadian team won it, Montreal, 1993.
Yeah, we had 3 teams in the second round. That'd be something special, right? And it has that feel. I don't know. The field is very level, right? Between 2nd and 16th or 17th, however the Florida Panthers kind of ended there. Like, I don't know. It's pretty close. Yeah, the Bruins are the outlier. There is enough history that says don't believe in the sure thing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you think a guy's going to run away with it, chances are they aren't. So, I don't know. I really like this. I'm excited. I'm excited to go. It sounds like we're fairly similar. Did we have any difference of opinions? Maybe New Jersey Devils? But even that.
I was like Ranger. I think Rangers. You like Rangers too. I think Rangers. Kraken versus Avs was probably the only one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Other than that, I don't love the Colorado. I'm just going to go with the pedigree on that one, right? I haven't seen Seattle in the postseason literally as a franchise. Not like, they've never been there. Maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe they're excited. I don't know. Is that building going to be alive? It might just be a dead, boring building, and they're playing on almost like a neutral site, right? I don't know much about the atmosphere right now in Seattle, so... However,
I don't know.
If you went on a bit of a run and you beat the Avalanche, I feel like there'd be a lot of fans that live about 2 hours north that actually want to watch probably quality hockey, and I don't think they're that diehard. You might see a couple passports being flashed at the border for Seattle. So,
I would be shocked if there wasn't already like thousands of Canadians already planning that trip, because that would be one worth checking out. I don't know if you looked at playoff tickets. Guess low end of the spectrum. Guess how much it costs to get into round 1 of the Oilers.
$500.
So face value for like the end of the ball. Well, I didn't know this, but face value for it was the very end of the ice. They call it the skybox. Okay. It's just the shit end of the ice. $362. I was like, I'm not paying for that. I found out the next day though, it does come with unlimited food, which I was like, okay, I could eat $100, $150 worth of food and make this ticket worthwhile. But at the same time, and I think there was some other like nosebleeds that were going for around 200, and that was just like shit seats. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like, it would almost be cheaper to fly to goddamn Los Angeles for a game at this point. Get a $180 ticket, spend $100 on a ticket. You get the exact same experience in a different arena, plus the sand and sun of California. So.
Yeah, and like I just don't understand that, because I'm sure you'd say the same thing about maybe Boston. Boston's kind of like it's a bigger market, right? And I imagine the New Yorks are probably like that too, right? But some of these like little shit teams that we have running around right now, like who cares about the LA Kings? I don't think anyone. You have LeBron James and the Lakers in the postseason. You have Kawhi Leonard. You have De'Aaron Fox up the coast just a little bit, playing playoff basketball for the first time in forever. You have like Steph Curry just a couple hours away. Who cares about the Kings in LA, guys? Come on. Versus all the Canadian teams and all the money that they bring in, and basically the fact that they probably keep the lights on in all the buildings around the league. So maybe you should help them. I'm not saying there's conspiracy and I think it's rigged, but Gary Bettman, bet you Canada would be really happy and make you a lot of money if you just called the game. Call it. I'm not even calling it like saying like give us a bias. Just call it down the line. Don't have an agenda with your referees this postseason, because like that's not what I want to do. I don't want to sit here in 2 weeks being like, I think the Leafs would have had Game 3 against the Bruins, but like they had like 5 bad penalties in the third period and it just sunk their chances, right? Like I don't want to have that conversation. I want to be able to talk about the joy and the love of the game and not the politics behind the scenes. So
low key, favorite thing to do for me is watching officiating in the playoffs, because you will know not everybody goes on. It's just like officials fall off as teams fall off because you don't need as many. I love watching to see the mistakes that cost referees. next round games, and I think we've talked about it. It comes up every once in a while on the podcast. So, anyways, looking forward to more referee conversations to just be like, what in the actual fuck? Not just referees, linesmen too, because there was a couple times over the last few years where linesmen have fucking shot themselves in the foot and actually changed the outcome of games. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But there will be more to come.
Yeah, that's it. Stanley Cup playoff preview. Cool. Do you have any picks? If you were to sprinkle any future money, have you looked in any series, any futures, anything that you like?
So let me just open this up here. I have 2 picks, but okay. You go ahead and go first.
Yeah, so if we were to do picks, kind of run off our Bettor Advice like we mentioned over an hour ago, more than likely. I'd look at future markets, and again, I don't think it's open. Could a Canadian team? It kind of has a magic in the air. I don't know. There's like a certain something going on. I don't know if it's just the weather, maybe just some sunshine. Vitamin D is giving me like fighting my depression that I have constantly throughout the winter. Leafs, Oilers, plus 900 Stanley Cup winners. That's not bad. $50 a piece. I'll take a share on both of those.
Well, maybe we should have consulted first, because I have the exact same picks, only sprinkled a different way. I said I was going to get reckless. I had a few things I was kind of kicking around, a few series prices where I was like, I'm going to take plus monies on these ones, but I decided against it. Eastern Conference winner, Toronto at plus 550, $50 to win 275, and then the exact same Edmonton to win at plus 350, $50 to win 175.
All right, well then. Let's go. Obviously, our intentions are clear. I was looking at series prices. Honestly, nothing stood out, right? Like some of these ones, what was the one? Seattle. You could get plus 225 if you think the Seattle are straight up going to win. I almost feel like at that point, like at that price point, individual game betting is probably better, right? Like at plus 135 for the Jets to beat the Knights, why wouldn't I just take individual games? Right? I just don't see the value on series prices at this moment. At least nothing jumped off the page, right? Maybe parlay them together, right? Like if I'm feeling cocky, I could go Wild, Jets, another upset that I like, and maybe make a little bit of money. But I don't know.
I was just going to say, this is one of those series prices are really where you want to increase your wager amount, because you're really going to sweat. There's more hedging opportunities, especially if you like underdogs, to take a big amount of money, hundreds, thousands, whatever, and then hedge throughout the series. And if you're really sharp at it, you can guarantee yourself money no matter what happens. But it takes volume, it takes risk, and truthfully, I would rather just lay it out all on the line, and say, this is what I think is going to happen. Maybe parlay a few together for an extra big payday. It doesn't matter. I'm not going in that direction with this post or in this recording, because my $100 is already spent. And I'm very happy to say that. Oh, you know what? I'm not happy to say this, because every time we're on the same side of something, shit always hits the fan. Hopefully one of us is right. If nothing else.
But what if we were both right?
Oh, man. We're really playing this homer angle today, and I got to say, I can't get enough of it, because, like, the optimist in me wants to believe. I want to believe that this is the year where we get 2 Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup final.
It just seems like it is very wide open, right? And that's the one thing I will say about, we alluded to, right? The difference between first and dead last, like any playoff spot is, it's not that varied. It looks varied, but when you look at kind of the grand scheme, the overall picture of the league, they're pretty darn close, right? And really anyone has a chance. Probably not the Panthers versus the Bruins. Like I think the Bruins, I could probably, like, if you had to put a gun to your head, I'd be like, probably the Hurricanes and Bruins are winning their first round matchup. Everything else is kind of a toss-up, but I feel optimistic that the Canadian teams should step up, right? And we're in a lull, like I said, for just superstar talent. I can't remember a time where I look around the league and, yeah, you look at McDavid and he puts up points, but everyone kind of looks and says, like, he doesn't win, right? And it's hard to have stars that don't win, and I think we need somebody to step up here. And I don't think that the best thing for the game is 38-year-old Patrice Bergeron lifting the Stanley Cup at the end of the year, right? Because that sets up, like, what the fuck is that?
Breaking his hip on the way up.
He was going to retire. Last year at this time, he was like, do I retire? Do I want to play hockey anymore? Tuukka Rask isn't here. Also, remember Karma? Remember Karma, that thing that exists in the world that ties? Remember when the Boston Bruins signed a sex offender in, like, December that no one talks about anymore? And they're like, that guy, yeah, he's sexually harassed and had some charges against him. We should sign him to a contract. How come Don Sweeney isn't on the hot seat for that anymore?
Good point. Valid point. Maybe the universe will eventually balance itself out. Who knows? But I do think, I as good as the Bruins are, can they do this for 82 games plus 16 playoff games? I don't think so.
No. We were talking about this at work, doing like pools, and everyone was telling me like, "Oh, the Bruins are going all the way. This is their year." And I'm like, you can't just pick the best team and be like they're going to win. You know what happened? You know why sports are sports? Because the best teams don't always win, right? Why haven't the LA Dodgers? Why don't they have 10 World Series in the last 10 years? It's sports. You know, things happen, right? Not always the best team, the most expensive team, the best players. They sometimes don't win, right? Guys step up, things happen.
And we will be here to recap you every step of the way because I am excited to see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
And I hate the popular sports opinion. Oh, yeah. My biggest argument for this is always just like, then bet on it. If you are so confident that this is going to happen, bet $1,000 that the Boston Bruins are going to win the Stanley Cup.
You want to make $3,000 this June?
Back.
Yeah, exactly. You want $3,000 this June? Easy. It's an easy take. Take it then. If it's that easy, make your $3,000. I don't care.
Yeah, no sweat off my back. Maybe some sweat off my back, but only $100 so far this postseason.
Sweet, cool. So with that, in fact, I think this is a bonus. I think the first one, our futures, they don't even count against our caps. So
house money.
Reload, fresh bill next week when we actually have some games to talk about. There you go. So hopefully that was... I feel like once we got into it, I'll be honest with you, the last 40 minutes of this podcast, premium content. Whatever we were doing in the first 30 minutes, I apologize. I'm not sure what the heck was out there, but...
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I'm going to tweet this episode out because it was a passionate episode.
Yeah.
But it's also going to come with a caveat. We don't start talking about postseason until 30 minutes in.
I am going to put a big flag on our YouTube show to say, skip to the 30-minute mark. I think that's when we start talking. I don't know what we were doing in the first 30 minutes. I think we were just having fun, just chatting. And then, then we got into it. And I was like, man, this is so good. Live and learn.
It's on me. I was like, here, I really just wanted to shit on the Calgary Flames for a little bit, and then, anyways, doesn't matter. Here we are at the end of it. But the Canada Puck Podcast would not be the Canada Puck Podcast without our Babe of the Week. In the spirit, like last week, in the spirit of the Women's World Hockey Championship, we are going to Tre Kron, which I believe is Swedish for the Three Crowns, and their absolute bombshell of a goaltender, Emma Soderberg. That is EMMASODERBRG. There's no E in the hashtag or in the ad or name, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. There's a lot of hockey pictures in here, but when you get a good look at Emma Soderberg, you will recognize her for what she is, and that is probably one of the most sensational women on the planet. Emma Soderberg, you are our Babe of the Week. Schwing.
Not only does she stop pucks, but momentarily she stopped blood being pumped out of my heart. So thanks for that little bit of angina this morning.
Well, one day, the status of the Babe of the Week will one day get the respect that it deserves. But for now, at least you and I can bask in the joy that Emma Soderberg brings.
That's it. And... Canada Puck Podcast. Well, I guess we can just end with our little slogan. But I was going to say, I feel like if Oilers or Leafs do make the Stanley Cup Finals, I feel like whoever's team it is just dictates what we do. You just get me for a week. You're like, hey Grant, what are we doing? How are we watching the game tonight? Tell me how we prepare. Oh, we're going there. I'll see you there, buddy.
That sounds fair. I will agree to those terms.
Cool. You're like, we're going to go live on the streets at Edmonton for a week, so bring a clean pair of underwear.
Yep. Well, maybe by that time we'll have a sponsor who will be willing to fly us between Edmonton and Toronto. Maybe we'll get those media passes we've coveted so much for the last 10 years.
Sick. Because I'm sure there will be a drought of people wanting to cover that series if it did happen. So, yeah.
Cool.
A lot of new podcasts popping up that week for those media passes. All right, so without that, enjoy this upcoming week. Take it easy this weekend, guys. Maybe just play a little Blades of Steel or ice hockey. Get a team of fat guys. No one's going to push you around, that's for sure. And
a team of Tanner Janot. I had to get it in there.
That's it. That's worth like 25 picks on the ice right there. Holy smokes, that's a whole franchise. That's a whole goddamn franchise. With that, we say, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.